Back at it here on a Tuesday with the Red Gold and Bold podcast. With you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Eric Eager from I don't know where. Kind of Pro Football Focus. I think still PFF. We'll get to that in a minute. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. You can catch my work at 810WHB.com. We are going to talk about the curb stomping. It's the phrase I used going into the game. I'm going to stand by it. I think that was a curb stomping of the Arizona Cardinals, the Chiefs handing a 44-21 defeat to the Cardinals, a game that I think was really over at 37-7. We're going to break it down. We're going to break down that Chiefs and Chargers matchup, talk about the injuries, the quarterback matchup. We'll get to it all. But we open this week with news. Somebody has to change that at PFF_Eric, and it's not a guy named Jeff or a guy named Soren. What is going on in the world of Eric Eager? Fill us all in.
Yeah, I mean, I announced today that I'm leaving PFF. It's going to happen relatively soon. Nothing bad. I mean, I just, there was opportunities that I couldn't pass up. And yeah, I'm going to a company called Sumer Sports. If anybody's interested in sort of the background on them, they were featured today in the Wall Street Journal.
You were featured in the Wall Street Journal, although not till late. I know. I really would demand a rewrite personally if I were you, as I read the story. Should have been, bold headline. Eric Eager.
It's not very often that you get a call from a writer on the Wall Street Journal saying, "Hey, when are you going to announce your new job so that I can write about it in the newspaper?" That was kind of a surreal thing. But yeah, I mean, it's been a very bittersweet day. I told over the last 2 days all the people that work for me and work with me that I'm leaving the company. I joined in 2015 part-time. In 2017 in January, I was still part-time, but I was started guest on your show, Petro.
That's right.
Then I remember in June of 2018, I told you over a few pops that I was joining full-time, and I have been there from 2018 to now. Couldn't be happier with the way things worked out. Not upset about anything at PFF. Just, it was time to move on. And I'm really excited. I can't really divulge all of what we're trying to do at Sumer Sports or where we're going to expand. But I can tell you I'm extremely excited. And there was a lot. What I think is really cool, Petro, is when I announced this on Twitter, there was a number of people who asked, if we were going to continue to do this show. And my answer is yes. Until I can't anymore, I'm going to continue to do this show. I love you guys, and I love talking Chiefs football. And so we're going to continue to do the show for the foreseeable future. So I'll just be under a different name, and I'll have different data available to me and stuff like that. But I'm thrilled, and it was everybody in life wants validation, and it was fun to get some of that today.
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations, first of all.
Yeah.
I know both Jeff and I have congratulated you already via the text.
Breaking that money.
That is.
And we got a sponsor now. We should have a big time sponsor coming.
Yeah, we should. We should
just put the PFF Eric part. We should remove that and put it into the presented by part. Yeah. And that'll be the thing. But yeah, it's and look, I know the joke writes itself. I did not leave PFF because they graded Patrick Mahomes 8th this week. I know that when it happened, there were a few people that I'm really close with at PFF that I had told, and Soren, you've known about this for a while a little bit too, but there were people that I've confided in a little bit, and I was like, Jesus Christ, why did this have to happen this week? And so when I did my announcement tweet, I jokingly at the end said, I promise it's not because of Patrick Mahomes' grade. But it was interesting that those two things happened on the same week.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Because I think that there are some people that are like, wait a minute. Did he get sideways?
Did I get fed up with them constantly downgrading Mahomes? Yeah. I don't have very many negative things to say about PFF. I did not understand that grade. I said as much on your show. I think it assuaged most of your listeners, but not all of them. That's for damn sure.
I will say this: the most proud I am about the whole thing is I asked, I mentioned to my daughter, my oldest daughter, who is a proud nerd, I consider myself in the nerd club. And I said, yeah. I said, Eric's leaving PFF. And she goes, well, where's he going? Right. Because, she knows Eric is the guy who like takes over the basement for like 5 days at a time around certain Chiefs games. And I said, well, he's going to a place called Sumer Sports. I said, you know where the name comes from? She goes, well, I think it has something to do with, isn't that like where math began? Is that the deal? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So my
First
daughter
civilization to use mathematics. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
she's a sharp one. I'm by the time she's my age, she'll be far smarter than I am. That is a lock, I think.
I'm hoping. Well, congratulations, man. I think it's awesome. We are thrilled. That was the first thing I asked, just like Jeff. We're like, hey, what about us? Number one, are you leaving us?
That's what matters most, right?
You got to ask yourself, and anytime you make a move career-wise, how can this benefit Jeff and Petro? Like that has to be, the first question that gets answered whenever a move like this happens. So we're glad that at least you're going to be here, and now we'll, we look forward to Thomas Dimitroff being a guest, right? Like that should happen any day now.
I can pull Thomas into this. I do think he certainly has much better hair than me and is very well spoken. So I think he'll want to get on camera for sure. That's a far cry from the previous CEO, Neil Hornsby, who didn't have any hair. I ring in halfway in between. But yeah, we'll certainly have different guests than we had before.
All right. I think it's awesome. I can't wait to hear about it. You're not moving, so we'll still see the same background, right? Like you're staying in the same location, or no? Are we going to see some tropical, window out the back or something?
Well, actually, I gotta say, like one of the updates. So I was going to go represent PFF soccer actually in Vancouver on the 24th of September. I might not make that trip, in which case I might represent Chiefs Kingdom at Indianapolis for week 3. That was a game I wanted to go to. I was like trying to square it and somehow get from Vancouver to Cincinnati in one day. And I might not go all together now, which means I might be able to go and have some watch some Chiefs football in the Dome.
All right. Well, congrats. Like we said, I think it's great, and we are thrilled that you're going to be staying with us. And we can't wait to hear what all is going on. I know it seems like it's very hush-hush, top secret, except for everyone except for the Wall Street Journal. Apparently, they are in on some of the dynamics. Top secret.
It's so top secret that it's in one of the biggest publications in the world talking about it.
Well, good. Well,
that just means he's making so much money he can't talk about it.
Yeah. I like it. Well, that's awesome. All right. Well, let's get to the Chiefs. More about Eric as more becomes available. We'll get into that in later episodes, I'm sure. But the Chiefs are 44-21 winners over the Cardinals. Jeff, I know everyone wants to hear your angle on this. More about KC.
Oh, they do?
Oh, yes. More about KC, because I'm interested in it. I'll be happy to go first.
I'll go first. Yeah,
I like to defer because I prefer to counterpunch.
Yeah.
But more about KC or more about AZ, the lopsided win?
Look, the Chiefs, I want to say this clearly so people understand this before we get into this topic. They were very impressive. They did what they had to do. There was no question going in. They were the superior team. We all picked them to win by double digits. But, yeah, I learned more about Arizona in this game than I did the Chiefs. I mean, I think we all know the Chiefs are going to start fast. They're going to play well in September. They've lost one season opening game under Andy Reid. But my God, like the team they just played, like I had my doubts about Arizona going into this. Like it's already a train wreck. There's already questions about how Cliff Kingsbury could have that extension. You understand more about their concerns about Kyler Murray. If I had known that J.J. Watt wasn't playing, which he brings question to this now because he's never healthy anymore, I would have probably gone to your score. I thought they would come out and be more conservative, try to milk possessions, try to shorten the game, try to make it something more like what Seattle did to Denver. And granted, I didn't see them winning the game, But to go out in your season opening game at home and get the doors blown off you with a game plan on offense and defense that made no kind of sense, it just defied logic. I mean, it's just the Chiefs were great, but the Cardinals are a disaster.
Okay, but the Chiefs are great. Are you bumping up your 10-win prediction?
I'm still 10. I mean, I had them winning this game, so it's not the game this week, this Thursday, will tell me a lot more about if I'm wrong about that.
And I think that's fair. But you had them winning, but you didn't have them crushing them. I didn't know if that maybe would sway you enough to say.
I had them by 10.
Okay.
I just didn't see it. Like, the only way you get to 40 is if your offense, the other team's offense, is a disaster, or you're playing amazing defense, and they had both happen. So
it was interesting though, right? Because I get what you're saying, Jeff, and I agree with you. Like, if you have a 10-win expectation for this team, it wasn't like, look, 10 is still a good number. And if you had a 10-win expectation of this team, you didn't have them losing to Arizona in week 1, right? Like,
no.
If you had them losing to Arizona in week 1, you had a 9-win expectation, 8-win, right? So week 1, other than style points, was not going to change you off of 10 wins. But the thing that I found impressive with them was, in the early drives, the commitment to the run game, right? They decided to run the ball with Clyde, and they were efficient with it. They also closed the game well with Pacheco. Those were two things that we did not see Kansas City do last year, right? Run the football effectively and close the game out effectively. In the middle part of the game, it was just Pat. And I think part of that was because, and I noticed this when we were watching it at the office, was when he handed off with his wrong hand, right? When he was supposed to hand off with the left hand, he handed off the right hand. I'm like, oh, they might just throw the rest of this game because Pat can't hand the ball off properly. It might hurt. He might hurt his already hurt hand by handing the ball in a normal way. So then the crazy part was they scored the 40 points 75 yards at a time. I think that was the thing that was even more impressive, because I do agree most games when a team scores 40, it's because of short fields. You look at like Philadelphia over Detroit, that was because of a pick six by Goff to James Bradbury. But this is a game that, they did get turnovers, but for the most part, it was 3 drives and all of them were like 75 yards, which to me, again, was what you had to, pass. Now, Arizona's terrible, and especially defensively. So, that obviously coats this. It'll be interesting too, because this Chargers team is injured, right? And you've seen the betting markets move over towards Kansas City. This might be another one of those games where the Chiefs win and you can make excuses for the other team.
Yeah, the thing that I think, more about KC, more about Arizona is the phrasing of the question, and oftentimes it's the phrasing that's in it. I actually think I'm going to surprise you. I think it might be a little bit more about AZ from my perspective, because I thought the Chiefs. I've got the Chiefs being better than Jeff did, so I'm not as shocked. This was the game that I thought it was going to be. I think it speaks to Cliff Kingsbury's. The only cause for concern I had was, one, as I looked at it, I said, okay, if I'm going to be wrong about this game, why am I going to be wrong? I'm like, well, one, it's a look ahead. It's not a divisional game. It's not even a conference game. And the Chargers are on it Thursday. If this game doesn't go their way, I'm going to look back and go, you know what? Why didn't I put more into the fact that the Chiefs are already on to the Chargers, right? That didn't happen. And there was a reason for it to be a look ahead. Chargers, on the other hand, had a Raiders team in division before this game, so they had less reason for there to be a look ahead. And then I thought, well, maybe Cliff Kingsbury is great in the offseason. He's got a great starting record, and he just sucks at the end. And if I end up being wrong on this, what I've got to go back and look at is Cliff Kingsbury kind of a master of the offseason, but in season, he just can't work fast enough? Answer, no. And so I actually think it is a little bit more about Arizona, because Kingsbury, why are you blitzing a guy who destroys blitzes? 54% of the time, they're coming with a blitz. To your point, there was a way to go into this game and say, look, we're outgunned, right? So if you're outgunned, it's time for the Princeton offense. Don't run up and down the floor with these people. Slow it down, drain the clock, fewer possessions. And that's not what they did. I do think it is more about the Chiefs defense. When we get to that part, I'm bullish on what's going on with the Chiefs defense, but it was amazing how they had a bad game plan, didn't adjust. And it was a bad game plan that I think a high school coach wouldn't have come in with. That's what was so baffling to me. So while I'm still full speed ahead on the Chiefs, 12 wins, I'm not bumping them up from 12 wins because I think the schedule is rugged. But I do think that was, if you're the Cardinals, you hit on it, Jeff. The whole valley has to be going, what the hell do we extend this guy for? I mean, that's the story in the NFC.
Well, think of it this way, and granted, no DeAndre Hopkins, no Rondale Moore. If that's Andy Reid coaching this team, think about the way Andy Reid played when Patrick Mahomes went down in 2019. He wasn't out there trying to run the same offense. He changed some things up, right? I mean, he handed the ball off more. He coached up Matt Moore. He called different types of plays. The fact that Cliff Kingsbury came into this game without two of his best receivers, relying on a guy named Greg Dortch to be a major target, a major weapon for his quarterback, that you couldn't have something in your trick bag more than what you've always done. It just showed me that all they can do is run this offense with this quarterback, and there's nothing else they can do.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's why I say it's really alarming. Like I can understand the blitz situation where you're thinking our corners, one died, one burned his foot up. Another one is just got here and he's not playing. I understand where you're thinking, okay, our back end's not great and JJ's not there. We got to do something super out of the ordinary. But again, on offense, there was just no planning. And when you're the coach, you come out in week one and you're talking about, we got to have more urgency in practice. We got to, this is what Kingsbury was saying after the game. We got to practice better.
Yeah.
You had a whole offseason to practice, prepare for this game. Get to week one. I can grant you losing to a superior team, which was going to happen. I can't buy into, oh my God, like we gotta work harder now. It's like, what were you doing? What were you thinking?
Yeah, I agree. And what was the most impressive part, Eric, of the Chiefs? Like your takeaway? I mean, Mahomes was impressive, but he's always impressive, right? ClydeEdwards-Helaire was effective in this game. The defense jumped out. I know we're going to get into them. We're getting into both of those things. The receivers, he spread the ball around. What jumped at you as, okay, this was the biggest takeaway from a Kansas City side?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, especially early in the season, you're always going to get a Patrick Mahomes that plays that way. The production on offense plays that way. Andy Reid in his bag with the underhand pass. Clyde Edwards-Helaire scoring 2 receiving touchdowns. That's what you want to see if you're a Chiefs fan, right? Like you want that. You saw Fortson, right? He's a early season touchdown machine. Kelsey was in prime form. MVS caught all 4 of the targets thrown to him. Juju, other than the fumble, was pretty dang good as well. To me, it was the defense, right? And it was the defense. You saw Karlaftis with 6 pressures. That was twice as many as any other rookie defensive lineman that this season. You saw Michael Dana get pressure, and obviously Chris Jones looked like a monster on Sunday against the guards and a good center in Rodney Hudson, and the line. And you said this on when I was on your show yesterday. Speed is better at tackling than slow. And they tackled better, not perfect, but they tackled better, and they withstood injuries. Trent McDuffie got hurt, and even though they had to play a rookie in his stead, it didn't fall apart the way it would have last year. So I thought the defense was the biggest thing. Holding an offense that made the playoffs last year to under 300 yards is a pretty damn good feat, in my opinion, and with all the caveats being that Arizona sucks.
I like that one. Jeff and 2K came out last week. I like this one. It's impressive. A number 8 graded quarterback played that good. That's a shot at the Pro Football Focus quarterback grades. Had Mahomes as the 8th best quarterback. And I like this from Terry. Terry said, and by the way, if you're joining us via the podcast, thank you. We appreciate it. You can also be a part of the broadcast live. We do it Tuesdays at 9 or 9:30 p.m., depending upon family commitments and baseball games and life happening. So 9:30 to 9. I know a couple people were complaining that we were running a little bit late, but 9:30-ish. Come on, Matt.
That's on me. My kid.
No, that's on all of us. We've moved to Monday because of me. That's on all of us. Who it is on this night does not matter. That's nice of you to say, but that does not matter. 9:30. We'll be here. We'll tweet it out. Follow us on Twitter. You'll find out, but you can be a part of it. That's where we're reading off some of the comments. If we got some first timers listening on the podcast, you can be a part of it. But Terry said several teams came out flat, kind of maybe sticking up for the Cardinals a little bit. He's right. The Packers did. You know who they are? They're the teams that don't play their quarterbacks, right? And that's the thing is like you get it with Aaron Rodgers, who played better, deserved better. His receivers didn't bail him out a lot, but still didn't play super sharp. And I think that's one of the things that's amazing. And I don't understand. If Andy Reid will put Patrick Mahomes on the field in preseason, Andy Reid, one of, or at least by some people's standards, the best current coach in the league, at least coaching at the highest level, is risking the best quarterback because he thinks it's important. And I don't know where how Cliff Kingsbury can think that Kyler Murray's at a point that he can Aaron Rodgers it. Because frankly, I don't even think Aaron Rodgers it well in week one. This is back-to-back years. They've been trucked. So yeah, I think you're right, Jeff. I think it actually is more about Arizona. Chiefs fans don't want to hear that, but we knew the Chiefs were good, right? To what degree, we'll wait and see, like you said, Eric, on Thursday. But Arizona was a dumpster fire.
Yeah, and you don't have to have every game be like a glowing, compliment of what your team is. Sometimes you just play teams that just are not as good as you. I mean, I'm a Michigan fan. Michigan beat the shit out of Hawaii last Saturday. I'm not going around pounding my chest talking about Rainbow Warriors can't hang with the Wolverines. It's like they did what they were supposed to do, and so that's how I look at this game. But to me, the most
Rainbow Warriors covered, by the way.
Did they?
Yeah.
They did.
Only you
it was a sweat, but they did it.
Was it?
It was actually, they had a chance to send it over on their last possession.
Yep.
And I think it would have covered too, because they were at 46.
No, they did cover.
No, it was 50.
But they could have scored like
53
to make the game go over the total. Like they were covering clearly, and then they like just kind of
they didn't cover.
Yeah, they did.
What was the
Michigan
final?
Michigan was 51-point favorites.
And what was the final?
Oh, Hawaii football 56-10. They won. They lost by 46. They covered.
No, it was 50.5.
Soren, 56 minus 10 is 46.
And what was the spread?
51.5.
And what was the difference in the game?
46. Hawaii covered is what I said. The Rainbow Warriors.
Okay. I think you're saying Michigan. Okay.
But Hawaii was driving to take the total over, but they were already covering. So like that was
Yeah, I'm sorry, my bad. Anyway, I don't know why we got.
That,
but
because you guys are unrepentant gamblers.
Degenerates. Well, we actually Jeff on a college football game that had nothing to do with this game.
That's right.
I can bet now, so I'm excited. So I'm into it again. Is Clyde Edwards-Helaire breaking out? Jeff, are you ready to get on the CEH bandwagon after that performance?
The one you've been driving, or the one that you?
I think I've been changing the tires on it and,
yeah,
trying to change the spark plugs out. I've been trying to get it going.
Yeah. Look, I liked what he did, and I was happy for him. He's taken a lot of criticism over the last few years. But look, I'll be honest with you, it felt like they wanted to get him going. It was almost like in basketball where you call a few plays just to get a guy some jump shots, some easy layups so he can feel like he's in the game and engaged. That felt like what it was going to be like for him, and maybe all season long. So I'm not like all in with him having some breakout season and becoming this runner who justifies where he was drafted a few years ago. I just don't think they're going to be built that way. You saw a lot of Pacheco late, as Eric said. You saw McKinnon in there. Ronald Jones at some point will be a factor in this offense. So I don't know he'll get the touches in that backfield to be excited about his stat total, but I do like them getting him going. I do like what he did. I like how they used him. I think that's more of what he can do in this offense. I'm at the point now where I just feel like if you're able to find some productivity in him and keep him healthy, that's a benefit.
For me, I think it's more about Patrick Mahomes getting the ball to the running back, right? Like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is getting some love, Eric, and I get that, and he did a good job. Like, let's celebrate that fact. To me, the bigger thing is Patrick Mahomes taking the check down, and a couple of times with the rush around him, instead of saying, I'm getting out of dodge, I'm going to start running, I'm going to loop around, try to buy some time. He just took that check down to the running backs, and that to me is an exciting thing for the Chiefs moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And there were the design stuff to Clyde too. Like we saw that in the playoffs, a couple years ago. The Damian Williams touchdowns in the air were not checkdowns; they were design stuff to him, right? And you saw that on the touchdowns this week as well. Mahomes was masterful. I mean, I get the jokes. You can save them, for a different time. But like the stuff that he was doing as far as manipulating the pocket and throwing it to, it wasn't just Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was getting everybody involved in that offense, and I'm really excited about where it can go. And I think the Pacheco thing's interesting. I was surprised actually that they played him. To be honest with you, I thought Ronald Jones was if he was gonna make the team, he was gonna play on Sundays. But They gave the ball to Pacheco. He looked pretty good, frankly, with the football in his hands. And they mixed McKinnon in. I thought that was going to be McKinnon's sort of role last year, and he kind of was an all or nothing kind of player for them on the offensive side of the ball. So it was very well done. They even mixed in some Sky Moore. He was clearly like a rung beneath the top three guys. McCole Hardman, I know, is still kind of a privilege for everybody in that building, but he even got involved a little bit. So, I mean, there really wasn't much that went wrong there. And when you look at, this upcoming opponent, they're going to have to be good because this pass rush for the Chargers was amazing against the Raiders, and they have amazing personnel. So it wasn't probably a fluke.
By the way, did you guys see, Eric, I think you did. You're on a text thread with Mark Boerichter and myself. McCole Hardman getting after Mark Boerichter.
Over what?
Boerichter, the long ball where it looked like it was like Hardman maybe he wouldn't have caught it, but he could have laid out and given it a try, and he didn't. And I think it was about then that Boerichter tweeted out something like, "Does anybody give up on more balls than McCole Hardman?" And he, something to that effect. And I'm paraphrasing, so I apologize. And McCole Hardman said, "You're a moron."
I mean,
in real time?
Does Boerichter pull?
No, not in real time.
Dropped the ball, went back.
Does Boerichter pull a Ron Burgundy? Do you know who I am on Hardman? I feel like he should.
I don't think it would.
Those are like the two receivers with the biggest first-year touchdown totals in the history of the Kansas City franchise. Like that's
Mark's definitely number one.
They're the Spider-Man meme. Well, Hardman as a rookie had the returns, right? That helped buoy his total, right?
Well, I know touchdown receptions by a rookie is Mark Boerichter at 8.
Yeah,
on a 20-catch season.
I know. I watched it. The 99-yarder. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think Mark needs to step the guy down a little bit.
I don't think Mark's inclined to do that, but I did find it entertaining. One of us tweeted or texted at him like, somebody's Googling or somebody's searching their name. If you're finding that, somebody wants to
say they're not connected on Twitter, right?
So anyway, I digress on that one. Chiefs defense, is it for real, Jeff? Are you ready to buy in? I know we're overall, and at least some of this is going to come under the category, the heading of what you said. I'll believe more when I see him against the Chargers, but how much buoyed, how much more are you on the Chiefs defensive side of the ball?
I'm where I was at the start. I mean, look, I'm optimistic about it. I like who they've drafted. I like what they've added. I like the athletic ability, the improvement there, the speed. But again, when Greg Dortch is your main weapon and you've got a horrible offensive game plan, it's hard to judge it in a way that I'd say, okay, I was really blown away by what they did. I just feel like, man, there were times when it looked like Kyler Murray was Tyrion Lannister playing against Shaquille O'Neal and Tim Duncan. Like the pocket, he looked so small in the pocket when Chris Jones was in front of him or Frank Clark. He was just swallowed up. And so without any real weapons there to challenge him, I just feel like this game against the Chargers will show me a lot more. And coming out of it without McDuffie is a big loss. I think him being on IR is a big deal for this team because you're able to get away with some things against the Cardinals that I don't think you're getting away with against a team that's more talented like the Chargers or the Bills. But again, I like the potential of it. I just need to see it happen against better competition.
Did you just go Game of Thrones meets NBA on us?
Yeah, how about that? A little mixed metaphor there, huh?
I had to.
I was trying to think of a big guy in Game of Thrones, but it would be like
the Mountain. How about the Mountain?
Yeah.
World's Strongest Man competitor. Because I had to think, I'm like, Tyrion Lannister, that sounds like and then he's like, Shaq. I'm like, is that like a bad Euro center or something? I'm like, no, that's the little person. And
I think of somebody really small.
Yeah, that's
who else is really small? Who's that? Like a Hobbit? I can't like throw Frodo Baggins.
Jeff's range here, I think, is immense. I mean, that is certainly stripped, outstripped mine for sure.
Shout out to Tyrion Lannister because what a phenomenal character. What a great character. So I love the reference. And you reminded me that I didn't watch the latest House of Dragon. I need to go do that.
You're not missing anything there.
The latest one? No good?
Yeah. I think the whole series sucks, but maybe I'm just being too hard on it.
everybody's like going on, and I'm like, I'm not feeling it yet. Like, it's great to be back in the universe, for lack of a better term, but I'm like, I haven't been blown away yet. So, by the way, Nick says, Peter, that's how you say it, Dinklage. Shout out to Peter Dinklage because he's great. All right, so okay. How about you, Eric? I mean, James Conner is the real deal. I actually think Eno Benjamin's a good back. I don't know why Arizona doesn't mix him in more. I like the kid. And part of like the game plan sucking is because the Chiefs defense did their job. Where are you on your approval rating on the Chiefs defense right now?
High. I mean, I said this on your show. To me, it's the biggest thing that I can see with the Chiefs is that Steve Spagnuolo is changing the stripes a little bit. And whether that's the whole, the Moneyball, movie, which is a dramatization of what actually happened, but the Billy Bean character going in and trading the guys that Art Howe wants to start, like that, getting rid of Neiman, getting rid of Sorensen, forcing him to get out of his comfort zone. Look, Super Bowls are one out of your comfort zone, right? You think about McVay last year, like McVay, for Sean McVay, he early in his career, he liked nothing more than to be the brains of the operation of the QB, right? He loved, having the clock come down and have Jared Goff, think for Jared Goff for the first 30 seconds of the thing. He had to live with Matthew Stafford, who led the league in picks and all this kind of stuff. And ultimately, getting out of your comfort zone wins the Super Bowl for the Rams. Spagnuolo getting out of his comfort zone and playing young players when he's almost never wanted to do something like that. To me, that was a big, big, big thing. And even when you get one rookie goes out like McDuffie, put another rookie in Watson, and I really like that the evolution of what's happening in Kansas City defensively, and it's because it's different, right? It's not just them praying away the same problems that have always been there. It's legitimately turning their back to the way that they were doing things for previous seasons.
It is important to note that this was not, the best receiving core that they're going to see, the guys that were down for Arizona, but you can only play against the guys that are against you, and the guys that are out there are professionals and earning a check as well. So from that standpoint, I do think that there is a level of, I don't care who it is in the NFL. You smoke somebody like that, you deserve some props. And I like the pressure, right? 3 sacks. I don't feel like it was like relentless, but I mean, and we're all going to celebrate the PFF grades for the pressures because the pressures were really good. Weren't two of the 4 highest pressures on the week were Chiefs? They were Karlaftis and Jones. And they get 3 sacks, and it's against a guy who's elusive. Now, guys that are elusive tend to hold the ball more and give you more opportunities to get them. So sometimes if you're, that can be better for you. But they had pass rush. Dunlop was out there. I've been wondering, are we going to see this guy limping through the season? The answer is no. Chris Jones has got a fire under his ass. I love that. A motivated Chris Jones is good news for the Chiefs defense. Linebackers flying around, big DBs, rangy DBs, a lot of speed. We will find out more against the Chargers. There's no doubt. And they're probably going to get got. That's one thing Arizona didn't get them. And that's what we talked about a lot, Jeff, right? That the young guys got to be susceptible to being smoked at some point. We're either going to have to give some props to Spagnuolo if it doesn't happen on a semi-regular basis early on, or we will fault the offense. But the Chargers Herbert should be able to get them. And if he doesn't, we're going to feel real good about this defense.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. I think that for me, like, I judge a defense, and I feel like a defense should be judged more so off how you respond to what scares you. And if nothing scares you, then you can do whatever you want to do. You can play rookies. You can let your pass rush go, get after it. You're not as consumed. A major reason, and I'm going to put words into Steve Spagnuolo's mouth here, major reason he was playing guys like Ben Neiman and Daniel Sorensen and Anthony Hitchens because he had to fear for what might happen if they weren't out there. If guys couldn't do or couldn't think fast enough to deal with his system. When you're playing against Greg Dortch and Andy Isabella and a team that is not a really strong running team, it's like you can go out there and okay, let's put Jalen Watson out there. Let's go out there and put Josh Williams out there. We're all good. And what makes it different when it's Mike Williams or it's Keenan Allen's not playing this game, but I know Josh Palmer, they're high on him with the Chargers, or Gerald Everett. Now you're saying, okay, you have to win these matchups. We're not as concerned about you losing. You have to win these matchups for us to succeed. We have to find a way to deal with Austin Eckler. We have to find a way to deal with a bigger quarterback who can throw the football 100 miles down the field and also run with it. So it's not a knock on what they did, because what they did was impressive. It just means it's going to be a different type of challenge. And so when you have I was talking today with a guy about the Bills-Rams game, and he was comparing this game to that. And he was just like, what's the difference? The Chiefs blew out the Cardinals and the Bills beat the Rams, and the Bills didn't impress me that much. Well, I said the Rams were Super Bowl champs, and they've got a lot of talented players. He's like, they're not that good. I wasn't that impressed with them. I said, they won the Lombardi Trophy. It doesn't impress you? But the whole point is that it does look more impressive when you're beating a really high-powered team versus the team that is just kind of stumbling along trying to figure it out.
Are you guys, because I did the PFF forecast Sunday night with George, and we did a power ranking of the top 5 teams in each conference. And when I did it, now George was kind of silly and put the Broncos in there, and I said, look, I need to see it from the Broncos. Every team in this league has been bad this week except for the Bills and the Chiefs, right? Does it help if you're a Chiefs fan and you think, okay, Indianapolis, meat grinder with a bad Houston team. Cincinnati, meat grinder with a bad Pittsburgh team. Baltimore played well, but again, I think Baltimore played well, right? But they were in the meat grinder for about half that game with the Jets, who are terrible. That team's picking first. You look across the league, Dallas, terrible. Tampa Bay looked like crap against Dallas, and Dallas just looked worse. Green Bay looked like crap. Even Philadelphia gave up 35 to Jared Goff and our Detroit Lions, Jeff. And so you look across all the way around the league, and the 2 teams that were supposed to be good and dominated were Buffalo and Kansas City. I do think that helps me, because I think what Jeff is saying is very, very true, which is got to see it against a good team. But there's questions here in the chat. Are the Chargers even a good team? That team won by 5 points against a Raiders team that turned it over 5 times, got sacked a million times. Like, why? Again, like, I think we come out of the game Thursday saying to ourselves, we're making excuses for why the Chiefs aren't that good because the Chargers end up being bad against the Chiefs. Like that's where I get worried.
And Eric goes to the whip, not early, downgrading the Chargers, but he goes to it here.
Why does the other team have the ball with the chance to win in every game against the Chargers?
I agree, and
sometimes it happens that way.
Not to the Chiefs,
not to great teams, not to
Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo won every single game. Buffalo won last year was by more than a score.
If you want to say that, hey, he was a first-year coach last year and Herbert's still young, okay, but all that's out the window. We're now grading the Chargers based upon being a championship caliber team, and championship caliber teams are not in nail biters every week.
Let me stop you there, because I watched that game and it was 24-13 until 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and the Raiders scored late. So they were controlled that game for about 56
and that
minutes.
was because the Raiders dropped a touchdown in the end zone, and Derek Carr threw 3 interceptions and got sacked 5 times.
Or did he throw, or was he intercepted? Because they had 6 sacks and 3 picks. They were pretty good picks. But he just threw them to
that offense needs to capitalize. Like, I'm telling you what, if the Chargers turn the ball over 5 times against the Chiefs on Thursday, the Chiefs are hanging half 100 on them.
Wait a minute. I want to quantify this. I want to quantify this because wait a minute. We can't be crediting the Chargers for winning by 5 over the Raiders. Derek Carr gets paid. Kyler Murray gets paid more. The Raiders were in the playoffs last year. So were the Cardinals.
Wait. Let's stop there. Who was he throwing the football to?
No doubt. Devontae Adams, Waller, better talent. I agree. Yeah. The better opponent was the Raiders. But I don't have the Raiders in the playoffs. Do you? No. Okay, so
no, but I could see them making the playoffs. I'm not saying that I don't have them in, but I could see them making the playoffs.
Yeah, listen. The 2 most impressive teams were the Chiefs and Bills. Bills, then Chiefs. Bills were still the most impressive team. The Bucks should have been more impressive because Eric, you said the 2 teams that were supposed to be. The Bucks against that turd Cowboy team should have been more impressive. They were disappointing. The Rams were hugely disappointing. They're tied with the Chiefs in the odds. It goes Bills, Bucks, and then Chiefs and Rams, right? And then it goes Chargers, Broncos. Those are the odds for the Super Bowl right now, if I'm not mistaken, or at least they were a few weeks ago when we were talking about it. So I mean, I get it. Yes, the Chargers had the better opponent. Yes, they were in control. They did let him back in, and to that's Eric's point. If you don't put the Chiefs away, the Chargers have been up like that on the Chiefs and lost and won. They beat them last year. They split last year, but they routinely come up short because they don't put enough of those games away. And I think that's just the point. And this was one where a better team may have caught them at the end. They didn't. We'll see what happens here moving forward. Injury-wise, Eric, Trey Smith, McDuffie, they go down in that game, which was a bigger concern in game for the Chiefs, losing Trey Smith, the guard, or losing McDuffie, the rookie corner?
Good question. We talked about a couple last week why they kept 9 offensive linemen with Devin Kennard and the new rules and everything like that. I mean, the guy that came in at guard was Nick Allegretti, a guy that started a Super Bowl for this team. Now, I know he's not a great player, but he's a guy that's played before. The Chiefs' offensive line, at least on the interior, have backups that have played. And so I would say offensive line is less of a concern. Additionally, Patrick Mahomes can cover up for a bad offensive line better than the rest of the Chiefs' defense can cover up for a bad secondary. So I would say defensive back is the bigger concern, and that obviously is going to manifest itself because Trent McDuffie is not only going to miss Thursday, but he's going to miss the next, I believe, 4 games on IR with the hamstring. Or his next game will be 4. His next game will be against Buffalo if he misses the minimum amount of games. The backups are rookies, right? Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson. They got rid of Lonnie Johnson and DeAndre Baker during because they had so much faith in these rookies, but it's a little bit concerning for sure. And they're going to have to, maybe they play more 3 safeties. Maybe Brian Cook plays and they go with Snead and Fenton at corner, just sort of, not have to play 3 corners all the time. I don't know, but it is a concern for me. It's certainly something where when you trade up for pick number 21, 22, and the guy's already hurt, that's a tough one.
Jeff, we had the question, you mentioned the point about playing last year, playing Daniel Sorensen, playing Ben Neiman, playing Anthony Hitchens. Part of the reason why those guys played when Willie Gay was healthy. So I went back and looked at the October 1 depth chart, and Gay was down at that point. But when Willie Gay was healthy, they had an option there. But you look at the depth of the DBs, it wasn't as deep, right? Like they played Daniel Sorensen because although I can't believe Armani Watts would be any worse. But they also sat Juan Thornhill, right? So that was one of the things. Now Juan Thornhill's playing, made a big pass breakup in this game where he recovered. You saw the speed. They do lose the depth. The depth chart looks a lot better now, but it's a no holes game, as Eric always likes to say. You don't want any holes in your defense, and when you lose some of that depth in the defensive backfield, McDuffie's the part that's scarier, right? As much as we like Trey Smith, Nick Allegretti can do a good job. Losing McDuffie is the one that, and the fact that he's obviously going to be out longer, that's the scary part, right?
Yeah. I actually think Trey Smith is the bigger issue.
Really?
Yeah, because I just feel like I talked about this on the Border Patrol this morning. I said, like, the idea of blocking Joey Bosa. If you take Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack versus Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley, I like the Chargers all day long with those matchups. So you have to do something with your protection to account for those 2 guys, which means you're going to have at least one of those guys double teamed every play. And so if you've got a backup guard in there, I think with Kyle Van Noy, who's an excellent blitzer, Sebastian Joseph Day can cause some problems for you in the interior. The Chargers on the back end, they played that game without J.C. Jackson and still had 3 picks and still had 6 sacks. I just think their potential to pressure Mahomes is being underrated here, that there could be some problems dealing with that. This is where the Tyreek Hill factor comes in. If you don't have someone like that who can just terrorize the back end of your defense, your corners can start creeping up. They start getting in people's faces. They start pressing and affecting your timing. That's a whole different ballgame. So to me, I think how they deal with that defensive front of the Chargers is a big factor in who wins this game.
I don't think anybody's minimizing the Charger pass rush, particularly after 6 sacks last week and Khalil Mack with 3 sacks and forced fumble. I don't know who's minimizing that.
No.
But I think
I'm saying we haven't talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Raiders, no, we haven't, but I think the Raiders offensive line sucks. So I think, the Charger front is very good. And I think it is. This is like, first of all, they're not going to come in with the asinine scheme that Arizona had. That's number one. And number two, they've got the personnel to play the right scheme, which is to give the Chiefs the true cover 2 shell look. And I've seen a lot of noise on here, not noise, but a lot of comments about how, well, if the Chiefs don't just, throw 4 picks that were in the hands of their receivers. And that is true. There were drops that turned into interceptions last year against the Chargers, but that's part of what that defense is about, right? It comes at you hard from the back. I mean, there are more drops against a cover 2 with guys with their backs to it because they know there's a guy flying up to get ready to put his helmet in your back. And so you're looking to get that ball caught and protect yourself and get turned around. That's part of what I remember talking to Herm Edwards, and Herm was a big believer about, I said, well, why do you love the cover 2 so much? He's like, it's aggressive defense. I'm like, most people would say, no, you're dropping back into a zone. How's it aggressive? And he said it's aggressive because when they're catching it in front of you, you're coming and you're going to kick their ass. Right. And he said, you ask anybody if they like hearing those footsteps of a guy closing in on them. Well, they're waiting for that ball and it's coming, but they don't know if the ball is going to get there before they take a helmet right in their ribs. Right. And so that's always stood, with me that there is an element like, yes, the Chiefs receivers should have done better, but that is kind of what this defense does to people. And that's how they will play. And they're even better this time on paper at being able to pressure you with 4. And here's what I'd be scared of if I were the Chiefs, is that they get you into long down and distance, a 3rd and 12 or 13 or something like that, where there really isn't much threat of a run, or even if you're going to get 8, they don't care. They'll stop you. You're still 4th and 5. And they come with just 3. And they put Khalil Mack and Bosa outside, have a spy roaming around with one guy coming up, and they're coming with just 3, and they're still beating your tackles off the edge while having 8 in coverage. That's a living, breathing nightmare for the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's my fear, because more and more teams are going to that. And if Staley opens his eyes to it, that could be really dangerous.
I think he's already opened his eyes to it. That's the point I'm making. I think that's the whole point of having J.C. Jackson, of having Bryce Callahan. Again, if you watch, there was a play in that Raiders game where you saw Derek Carr try to hit Devontae Adams on kind of a corner route, and I think it was Asante Samuel came out of nowhere and just plucked the ball in the air, interception in the end zone. And it's just, they have so many guys who can ball hawk now. And granted, Derwin James being healthy is a part of this too. I'm not just going to sit here and sell them as being, hey, they're going to come in here and roll the Chiefs. The Chiefs offense is phenomenal. But again, when you don't have to devote another set of eyes to covering a Tyreek Hill, and you can play more people straight up, or you can have another set of eyes on Travis Kelce on the back end, that coverage dictates a lot of what's going to happen up front. And that front, if Bosa and Mack are able to wreak havoc, then that's, like you said, it's a huge problem for the Chiefs that I don't think can be solved as easily as it could have in years past.
They do have 2 tight ends, Eric, the position you played. They got Fortson involved. They got Noah Gray involved. Fortson obviously in the end zone. Is that the recipe for this game to try to neutralize, is to get a chip? Travis Kelce and Fortson and Gray playing in close and getting a chip to try to help out those tackles on almost every passing play?
Yeah, it's also just deception. It's get into I formation, condense the line, make it so that Khalil Mack can't line up wide 9 or whatever, away from the tackle. Make sure that if they line up, if they try to run the silly Fangio soft defenses, you gash them for 6-7 yards at a time, right? And because I think a lot of these defenses, they're extremely comfortable now in 6 defensive backs, 2, what does it end up being? Carry the 2, 3, 6, right? Where they have the two fatties that in the case of the Chargers last year couldn't hold down anything. They have the 2 edge rushers, and then they have a linebacker next to a safety in the box, and they get steamrolled, but they don't give anything against the pass. You take that, you put a tight end in the game, you put a fullback in the game, you put your 2 wide receivers in, and you make that second middle linebacker play, who never plays and sucks, right? Because that's how they constructed the roster. Make the 3rd interior defensive lineman play. I think, it was you put these teams in positions they're uncomfortable with. And when those teams get into 6 defensive backs, they make the offense uncomfortable, right? And they make the offense do things like chip and stuff. Well, why don't you're the offense. You can dictate the football game, get into 21 personnel, run the football on the Chargers and run that play action stuff. Because the linebackers for the Chargers, newsflash, they stink. They always have stunk. And, that's where you use your running backs and things like that. Because, the Chargers acquired Bryce Callahan this year. He's fantastic. Get him off the field.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, and that's the hope, is that more downhill running, more power, and say, okay, if you're going to play light and drop, then we're going to play heavy and run. And we'll see if the Chiefs can change that personality that fast. Cause it wasn't like what they did run very effective, and it was much more downhill against the Cardinals. I mean, the running backs had 23 carries for, I think, 136 yards or something like that. It was 5.5 yards a carry for running back runs. And I think that's something that is going to have to continue against the Chargers. And anytime they face, and I don't know who else would you face that have this kind of edge combo. I don't know if there is anybody that's this good. The Chargers do have injuries, though, Jeff. Keenan Allen's 50-50. I think most people would say probably doubtful, but they're calling 50-50. J.C. Jackson didn't play last week, but they're acting like he could be available. Maybe that's just a smoke screen to make the Chiefs burn reps to prep for these guys. But, how big are the injuries on the Charger side?
Well, those are 2 very good players. I mean, 2 Pro Bowl players. So, yeah, I don't think there's any way Keenan Allen plays in this game. The way that hamstring sounded. Now, it doesn't sound as serious as McDuffie's, but short week, it's hard to see a receiver going out there with a hamstring injury and doing what he can do. And that's really Justin Herbert's security blanket. Herbert would even say that, right? That this is their most accomplished route runner, most reliable player in clutch situations. Again, they like Josh Palmer. They've been high on him. They've been high on this guy, DeAndre Carter. Gerald Everett at tight end. He's played for the Rams. He caught a touchdown pass. I think, if anything, if you're the Chargers, you're encouraged by winning that game against the Raiders with Mike Williams and Josh Palmer, your 2 best receivers after Keenan Allen, catching like 3 passes or something like that. So they spread the football around a lot too, which I think has been an underrated part of Herbert's game. But J.C. Jackson, certainly, in a game like this, you want to have your best cover guy. He came out of his boot. I was in LA last week, and Staley said he came out of his boot last Friday. And so
he was limited in practice, so he was at least out there.
Yeah. And so, I think there's a chance. And I don't know if it's worth the risk in week 2 if he's still not where he needs to be to push it. Because, again, they have Asante Samuel. They got Bryce Callahan. They got Mike Davis. All 3 of those guys that played a lot of snaps. They were comfortable with them last week. As big as this game is in the AFC West, you don't want to hurt your chances of having J.C. Jackson later in the season. But if I had to pick one guy, Keenan Allen certainly is the bigger loss for them. I mean, he's a big part of what they do offensively.
Is Harrison Butker potentially the biggest loss? The Chiefs today made a number of moves. One, getting Matt Amendola to the practice squad so they could easily activate him. And, of course, Trent McDuffie going to the IR, which we already mentioned. But that could be the biggest one, right? Like, we love the story of Justin Reed, and it's great watching him kick when you're kicking the crap out of the Cardinals. But if it comes down to it, and you're going to run – by the way, that's not Matt – he's not related to Danny Amendola, which I was told by somebody today. It's spelled differently. But I don't know what the hell Matt Amendola brings to the equation. And I love the story of Justin Reed, but I don't think I want 3 seconds on the clock, Chiefs down 2, and Justin Reed lining up from 48. So that's a big one. If this game,
hey, look, Nathaniel Hackett would line him up from 64. Spend $250 million on a quarterback, 3 first-round picks, and lay up for a 64-yard field goal. That's your king. That's the team that's winning the AFC West in the minds of some. Sorry, that's a.
I will offer up that Nathaniel Hackett has the opportunity to get better, and damn well better. But
because that was a privilege last night. That Denver team was. You lose when look, and I love the Geno Smith story as much as anybody. He's one of the greatest stories on this flat earth, right? But they played an offense that what they played the baby offense for him last night, and he executed the first half and the second half like that. Denver's going to look back when they finish 8-1 and they don't make the playoffs in this AFC, and they're going to look at week 1 and say that would have been nice to have.
Listen, if they don't fumble twice with inside the 5,
it should never come down to that.
Seattle's going to win 5 games this year if they're lucky.
I'm not arguing your point on either side, right? Like I'm with you. It's very concerning if you're the Broncos that your new guy is a turd at the end of the game. But I said this today. I said I don't care what level you're at. Jeff, you've coached Pee Wee ball. At the end of it, I don't care whether it's at or high school or college or the NFL. The first time you get down to nut cutting time and everyone's looking at you like, "What are we going to do, coach?"
Yeah.
Do these guys not watch games?
They don't. They watch film. And I've made this point for years. Yeah. Coaches don't watch games. They watch film. They watch matchups. They watch individuals.
That's a really good point. I haven't even thought about it that way.
And there's only one game that they're ever involved in each week. They don't sit there and take in my time zone, the noon, the 3, the Sunday nighter, and the Monday nighter, along with the 11, 2:30, 6, and 9:30 in college footbul. Yeah, like they're not consuming and that's close the whole games thing. Every weekend. Like
it's worse.
It's the one place where we as fans, I think, are better equipped at doing something because we're repping it more than they are.
Yeah, because it's crazy. We have more mental reps of watching these games than they do because that's a great point. I never thought of that way because when you think about they actually have thematic cut-ups for these. Like they don't even watch the games in sequence. They watch them in like sort of here's all the zone runs, here's all the gun run, all this. That's a very good point, Petro. And you think about it. I made this tweet when I watched Louisville play UCF on Friday night, and I was like, half of these games in college football are won on accident, right? The guy, I mean, Gus Malzahn versus Satterfield, like neither one of those guys deserves to win a game like that. And one of them has to, especially in college. And it's just like, because you watch that game and you're thinking every single person watching that game has a better clue of what to do than the head coach of the one of 32.
Yeah, this is the problem with not ever having called plays and being the head coach and wanting to be the play caller. So you just don't understand all the things that go into that.
That's an edge the Chiefs have because they have a coach who can actually, for the most part, actually do it. And everybody is looking for the next Andy Reid when the answer is no, don't get yourself an Andy Reid. Get a guy who can be the CEO and have everybody else call plays because it's too freaking hard to call good plays and to manage the game.
Andy Reid is really good. He'll be even better when he preps a guy to be the play caller for him, right? Or
the other way around, or he has an in-game handler. Yes, like an in-game handler would be great for Andy.
And I think it's possible that if he and Bieniemy, I don't get the extra layer of him calling the play and then Bieniemy radioing it in. I've never understood that. That just costs time. And every time I see Mahomes go like this, I'm like, well, Jesus, if we didn't have to call it twice, it'd already be in there. It drives me crazy.
By the way, how angry was Shannon Sharp on that simulcast? Like. He was cranky about DK Metcalf and him tweeting back and forth, and the dude looked angry. I'm like, Shannon, you're the best tight end in NFL, one of them at least, best tight end in NFL history. Like, smile a little bit, buddy. Like he was furious about DK Metcalf during that game.
By the way, I still want to throw a shout out and props to the flat Earth comment. That was the only reason it was brought up, was to talk about the flat Earth comments of Geno Smith. But I do want to finish this point before we just bury the Broncos and Nathaniel Hackett as a boob. He will get back. That was my point about I remember the first time I coached Little League basketball and we had a close game and it was like everyone's looking at you and you're like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. And I don't care what level you're at. It's the first time where it's all on you. And that was it. And he pissed his pants. I mean, there isn't any way around it, but he will get better. And that could have been covered up, and he could have been a lot more comfortable the first time he had to do that had they not pissed it away inside the goal line twice, down at the goal line twice, and been there. We'll get to the Broncos more tomorrow when we get to the two deep. I don't want to get too far away, but it is significant that they squandered a game that should have been a gimme for them, and that's what the Chiefs do. They don't do that, not very often. And if somebody's going to run them down, you can't be crapping those games away. And to Jeff's point about the Chargers earlier, they didn't fritter it away against the Raiders. They got the win. They're moving on. Now they get a chance to make the statement head to head. And the statement will be made of some kind, Jeff, between Mahomes and Herbert. Is this the kind of game that motivated? We've talked about that. He lost one last year against Justin Herbert, and his teammates didn't really help him out. He looked like a motivated guy in preseason. He clearly was a motivated guy. 4, as he signaled out to the Arizona bench. I mean, this is a man not to be trifled with. This is what I would call an assassin in cleats right now.
Yeah, sir. I mean, look, I'm sure he wasn't happy, or he spent most of his offseason thinking about how last year ended, which I think is the bigger motivation. I think we can talk about whether Josh Allen gets too much hype or Justin Herbert gets more hype. I think it's just about he's missing opportunities to win and play for championships is probably what pisses him off the most. And so he had to go into this offseason knowing how last year went at the start of the year, knowing how the season ended, that last half against Cincinnati. So, yeah, and I think having to prove some questions. I mean, this is the first year in his NFL career where people were talking badly of him. And not just, people who were haters or whatever, people who were frustrated. I ran into one of the greatest Chiefs players ever in the supermarket after the AFC Championship game the next day. And he was like, this guy's got to learn to stop running around in circles. He's got to be able to see things faster. He's got to be able to, it can't just always be going out there, running around, trying to throw the ball 70 yards. This is one of the greatest Chiefs, unprompted, by the way. This is me trying to get my whatever ham sandwich, and he's like blowing me up for 30 minutes about this. So I'm sure whether Mahomes heard stuff that was that candid or stuff that was on social media or talking heads, whatever, I'm sure all that stuff was part of his fuel. So when I look at him, the way he played in the preseason, the way he played on Sunday, I think that's a big part of it. Like just the next step, the new challenge. And so I do, but what I will say is this, though. Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Mahomes, those are the 3 most obvious guys to compete for the MVP this year. Those are the 3 best quarterbacks in the league right now.
By the way, not only impeccable value added to this podcast from a football perspective, but Jeff giving away the secret to how he looks the way he does. Ham sandwich, everybody take notes.
That's right. I think it might have been turkey. I just threw that out there.
Yeah.
I'm
go ahead. I mean,
I'm feeling good today, guys.
I can understand why.
But y'all have money. You're sitting higher because you got a bucket of cash under you. That's what it is. Sitting on dollar bills.
But Mahomes, Herbert, this is the game that both these guys, live to play in. Is this the one that sends Mahomes to a whole nother level in this game, Eric? And he's got revenge on his mind from last year. I mean, they did win later in the year, but it took overtime. They had to rally to get it done, and Mahomes did rally to get it done. Chargers couldn't hold him off that time. But is this where we see his best?
I think so. I mean, they're going to need it. This Chargers defense, as we've talked about, has real talent on it, and so they'll need it because I think Herbert will have to play better even than he played the other day. And for them to compete, we've seen the markets move towards Kansas City, opened 3 right back in May. You saw some 3.5s pop up, but, kind of closed before last week at 3. Now it's moved out a full point. The betting markets believe the Keenan Allen and all, the injuries for the Chargers, which also are compounded by Mike Williams' ineffectiveness last week as the number 2 guy and their lack of depth at wide receiver. They think that that's worth a full point relative to the Chiefs' injuries. So, the markets are buying into Patrick Mahomes, and they're buying into the stuff that Jeff was talking about, which is that there's going to be some motivation here. I think it's going to be a great game. Now, does that mean he wins? No, there have been games where Patrick Mahomes has played fabulous football and they've lost before. Seattle in 18, LA in 18, obviously, championship game in 18 as well. So that doesn't mean a guaranteed win, but I think Patrick Mahomes is going to play wonderfully on Thursday.
I'm seeing all the way to 4.5 on one side, 78% of the cash coming in on the Chiefs, 65% of the tickets, which means they're bigger bets. that are going that way as well when the cash is higher than the percentage of the tickets.
Right. And if the number moves, like the biggest indicator, so ticket splits are interesting because, and just again, we'll probably end up being sponsored by a sportsbook. So we'll educate the listeners here. But basically, like you got to be careful of cash and ticket splits because you don't know where the bets were placed. So some of those cash and ticket splits could have been on Chiefs -3, which is not available to anybody anymore, or
Right.
3.5. The biggest indicator that people are betting the Chiefs, or people that matter are betting the Chiefs, is that number has moved out to 4.5. Like the real indication last week that people loved the Chiefs was that number went from 3.5, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way out to 6.5. That means not only are people betting the Chiefs, but people whose opinions are respected by the sports book are betting on the Chiefs. And that's again occurring this week. Which again, there are other ways to bet Kansas City. Then if you like that, I personally look, Patrick Mahomes for MVP is still a good bet, folks. And given how well Josh Allen played last week, you're still getting if Mahomes was the only quarterback that played that well last week, you'd be screwed, right? You wouldn't get as good of a number. But given how well Josh Allen and to Jeff's point, Justin Herbert played last week, you're probably still getting a value on Mahomes. If he blowtorches the league on Thursday Night Football the same way Allen did last week, you're never getting a good price on Mahomes the rest of the season, in my estimation.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We had some questions about it. It's 4.5. Looking at the FanDuel line, 4.5. Chiefs are -106. Chargers -114. So you're having to get a little bit more, put a little more down to get to the 4.5. Money line, Chiefs are -210, which I think is significant. They're heavily on the part for the Chiefs to win, and then the point total is 54.5. Who you got in this game? Who wins? What are you feeling for a score, Jeff?
This is a tough call because I think it's always hard to pick against the Chiefs in September and the way they play, the way Mahomes looks. But to me, the Chargers need this game more. They need it for credibility. They're the only team in the division playing 2 division games to start the year out. If they can go 2-0, that's a huge advantage as far as confidence for them. And they came in here and won last year. And so I think their defense is going to be the biggest factor in this. I like them 27-24.
Eric, last year the Chargers won. Let's see, I had those games pulled up. The Chargers won the first one 30-24. The second one, the Chiefs needed overtime, but got there 34-28. They trailed at one point in the game. Let's see, they trailed 14-10, 21-13, and 28-21. Kelsey touchdown with 1:18 and 1:16 to go, tied it up, and yet they're laying 4.5. So based upon last year's prices and the team that improved the most, I think we'd agree Khalil Mack was and J.C. Jackson, if he's going to play, were the biggest signings that either one of these teams made, right? The team that theoretically, at least at the end of 60 minutes, was covering both games, the Chargers. Overtime, the Chiefs got there on it, but the Chiefs lay 4.5. Want to explain to me how they arrive at that? I know it's the betting market pushing it, but they'll also hold the line if they think that that's going way too far the wrong way, or if the smart money is over on another side. I mean, this to me is kind of a pretty strong statement. They like the Chiefs.
Yeah, last year in week 3, the Chiefs were 6-point favorites. The total was 54.5. Interestingly, that game went under because the extra point in the win on that last touchdown was missed by the Chargers. In the second matchup, the Chiefs were 2.5-point road favorites in Los Angeles. I think the total was like 52.5. That game was if you bet the under in that game, God bless you, because it should have went under. That game, went over because of heroics at the end by the Kansas City quarterback. I think that people are wising up to what we've said. The fact is the Chiefs defense got better. And it was from a position of weakness. I'm not saying it's a position of strength, but defense, it matters more to go from terrible to average. And that's at least what the Chiefs have done relative to where they were a season ago in week 2. Chargers basically went from kind of a little bit below average, especially on the run game, to a little bit above average. That actually doesn't have the value that I think perception believes when you get guys like Mack and stuff like that. And then you look at the offensive side of the ball, and let's face it, guys, Kansas City is better. The depth at wide receiver makes them better than they were a season ago. So I think that that's where it's going. But yeah, to your point, Soren, the books don't take money to balance action. They take money They take money. They put the number to where they'll think sharps will bet both sides of it, not the whole public. So, this number being out to 4 is extremely meaningful.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'll add, if I've heard a number of people say, well, this is like Mahomes in 2018, where he clearly had something to prove. That's that I belong, I'm a starter. 2018, he opened the first week against the Chargers, and he had a game that we're all like, oh, my God, look at this kid. 15 of 27 for 256, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. I remember thinking the next week, okay, this is the Steelers he's got to go up with. No way he's going to put that together again. Now nobody would question whether or not he can do it. And he went for 23 of 28 for 326, 6-0. Right? He's pretty good the whole month of September. And just because he has one big game doesn't mean he can't do it again. I know Matt said, I think Patrick Mahomes goes scorched earth on Sunday. I think that's a possibility. I do worry about the Thursday games can tend to be sloppy because guys are still banged up and hurt. And so that is a wild card in it. But yeah,
advantage goes to the better coach on Thursdays.
That's where I'm at right now. I think you take the Chiefs and you either don't play it or you take the Chiefs and lay the points. I'm not going to pick the Chiefs right on a spread, so I'll take the Chiefs. I don't think they run away and hide in this one because I think Justin Herbert's too good to turn the ball over a bunch of times. But so is Patrick Mahomes, and yet that still happened in a couple of games. I'll take the Chiefs. I'll take 27-20. 27-20. Where were you, Eric?
So I will take. I actually think it'll be a little bit lower. I actually did bet the Chargers plus 3.5 in the offseason because I figured I was wrong. I figured that this game would close lower. I thought the public would like, or the betting public would like the Chargers more, and I'd be able to get Chiefs at like minus 2.5. That I was wrong there. But I'll stick with a 3-point prediction. So I'm going to go 30-27. Kansas City.
So you like it more scoring?
I do. I think it's going to be. I mean, Thursday Night Football. Look. Again, more betting advice here. This league is full of a bunch of quarterbacks who are ass. And if you look at the betting lines, if you have a game with 2 good quarterbacks, the total's in the 50s, and it usually goes over. If you have a game with at least 1 bad quarterback, the total's in the 40s, and it usually goes under, right? And so, when you saw last week, Murray and Mahomes, that total was 53.5. Prescott, Brady, that total was 50 or a close 49.5. You look around Buffalo, when you had Allen versus Stafford, that game was a 50 burger, right? And then everywhere where you were like Brissett, Mayfield, it's like 39.5. Like this league, like when you get 2 quarterbacks together who are both good, you're going to get scoring in the NFL. Every other game is a grind.
So I'll take the under. I think this ends up being more of a defensive grind. I think the defenses are better than people realize, and I agree with everything you're saying. But I think this one, 54.5 is a big number, and I think it's going to be closer to the vest because of the way the Chiefs have to play. I think they're going to grind it a little bit more. Jeff, what was your score?
27-24.
27-24.
Chargers.
Chargers. Okay.
Yep.
So Jeff's got the Chargers. Eric and I are on the Chiefs. We will see what happens. Congratulations again, our buddy Eric Eager, changing jobs. Great opportunity for him. But he's not going anywhere. He'll still be here on the Red Gold and Bold podcast and our 2D podcast, which we will do tomorrow night. You can join us as we'll be back at it 9p unless there's a ball game or family thing, then we'll back up a little bit. But 9p tomorrow, we'll be streaming live on our 2D podcast. So for Jeff Chadiha of the NFL Network, Eric Eager of PFF, still now
Sumer Sports.
And Sumer Sports. Okay, Sumer Sports. Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHP saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.